Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. In the name of God, the Compassionate, the Merciful, the First Lady, Ambassador Muddin, Mr. Sabko, distinguished members of the Cabinet, His Excellency, the Chief Justice of Afghanistan, distinguished ambassadors, colleagues, members of civil society, the business community, Chairman of the Independent Election Commission, Chairman of the Independent Complaints Commission, ladies and gentlemen, a very big welcome to you. First, let me pay tribute to our martyrs of democracy and equally express sympathy for people of Canada and other recent victims of terrorism. May I ask for a moment of silence, please? The chapana I'm wearing is one of the most valuable gifts that I've received as the president. This is a gift from people of Mirzaulan, a people who were subjected to brutal torture and murder, the repetition of which, again, we've witnessed through the attack on our democratic institutions. The reason I consider it it's my most valuable gift as a president is that these people speak for all of Afghanistan in terms of their commitment to democracy, to rule of law, to a secure environment, where they will be able to elect their leaders without fear in a fair and free election, inclusive election. Because of that will, we will not waver in moving forward with our four political tasks: elections, peace, and reforms, especially in implementing our anti-corruption strategy and poverty eradication. These are the tasks that the people of Afghanistan, 1/3 of them go to bed hungry every night, mandate us. I would like to thank the EU and our international partners for dialogue, support, and staying power. All you distinguished ambassadors and Ambassador Yamamoto and your colleagues, I'd like to thank you for your courage and conviction in staying with us, in being such advocates for a people whose aspirations are the right values and whose sufferings have known no limits. Thank you on behalf of my people. You've chosen an excellent theme: corruption in recess, peace and progress. It could be broadened to saying reforms in progress and corruption in recess. I'd like to express special appreciation to Mr. Sabko and the Sagar team for being such excellent partners and for shining light on the areas that need further attention. Let me also extend a special welcome to the new members of MAG, including Mr. Tang. And let me thank General Skipwell and all the members of the Resolute Support Mission for their phenomenal sense of dedication and support to us. I would also like to acknowledge colleagues who are leading and managing transformation at their institutions, ministries, and general directorate. It's my particular privilege and honor to acknowledge the leading role of our Chief Justice Ali. Thank you for what you're doing. The Attorney General is not with us. I'd like to specially mark him also. Let me take you back to 2014. What was the mood? I revert with Sir Nicholas's permission to an English poet. Things fall apart. The center cannot hold. The best lack all conviction, while the worst are full of passionate intensity. So wrote Yeats in 1919. The poem captured the predominant mood because the mood both inside in the region and abroad was, how can 4 simultaneous transitions political, security, economic, and the culture of state, the pervasive corruption be tackled. The Government of National Unity faced its four-dimensional challenges, and I hope now to take you to the moment. What's the emerging trend? 4 years into the decade of transformation, we are still confronting our fourfold challenge. And in the 6 years remaining, we need to establish our self-reliance. But emerging pattern is discernible. The center is gelling. The best men and women are acting on their convictions. They are accepting high office at enormous personal cost and sacrifice. Democratic change, peace, and self-reliance are achievable goals within the decade of transformation, and Afghan businesses are investing. They are pouring tens of billions of dollars. Now, I think their investment is exceeding billions of dollars. This is a sign of things that can come. The trend is positive, but it's reversible. So we cannot rest on our laurels. On the contrary, we must accelerate our efforts. Our efforts with Central Asian and other regional partners are showing the immense potential of Afghanistan as a roundabout and corridor. In 2014, you would have been considered mad to say that Central Asia is looking south. Now there is a consensus that all of Central Asia 5 and Caucasus are looking south, and we are looking north. But more significantly, we're witnessing regional connectivity as a probable reality and a palpable reality rather than a dream. 25 years on the books, TAPI is now becoming a reality, as well as transmission lines and others. Increasing probability of regional connectivity is turning established wisdom on its head. Prime Minister Abbasi of Pakistan probably put it best. He argued last visit that connectivity will likely impel regional cooperation on security rather than the other way around. And we thank all our partners, foundational partners, the United States, European Union, Japan, all of you around the table, UK and others, as well as our regional partners who are becoming such significant players in producing a different image and a different sense of possibility. I would like to acknowledge the South Asia strategy of President Trump in the United States as a game changer, because it is forced re-examination of assumptions by all actors, and without this strategy, our peace offer and the peace discussions would not have been possible. Thank you, Ambassador Bass and colleagues, for your continuance in daily work. Our peace offer, regional partnerships, and democratic commitments in reform efforts are redefining the rules of the game to align them with the Constitution. In 2014, nobody could have claimed that the formal and informal rules of the game are aligned with the Constitution. Now the Constitution, as our rule book, is increasingly becoming our defining reality, and because of that, elections are crucial to establishing the mandate, and Dr. Syed and Mr. Araryai have been given that task, and the nation looks to them. On corruption, let me first tackle the big picture, bringing depth and breadth, highlight some of the challenges, and then go to briefly take stock of the 6 priorities and the ministries. Big picture. The strategy, our anti-corruption strategy, is meeting the criteria of a good strategy and avoiding the symptoms of a bad strategy. There's no fluff. You see what you judge, the criteria are clearly articulated, and the tasks are clearly delineated. Therefore, the judgment, particularly for Mr. Sobko, becomes easy, and we welcome that. Colleagues will share details regarding the 6 priorities. I'll briefly touch on them later. But what I would argue is that initial gains on all 6 fronts have created the foundations for accelerated change. And we look very much forward to the July NATO conference and to the November Geneva conference to be able to give stock not of effort but of results. A whole of government effort is not yet fully in place, as some of the priority ministries are lagging. And we need to clearly highlight those that are lagging and push for between now in July and now in November to get even pace. A whole of state effort, unfortunately, is not yet in place. The judicial and the executive branches, if moved, and both show significant gains. Parliament is neither come with its own anti-corruption strategy nor acted on requests from the Attorney General to turn over members accused of corruption or abetting and aiding corruption for prosecution. This remains a significant challenge because parliamentary immunity is an issue. And it goes to the heart of rule of law, but when an institution, his members, the majority, we respect, but those members that stand for corruption and abetting and pushing it, and this issue should be one of your key themes in the discussion of corruption in the election process. Resistance, as anticipated in the strategy, has been intense and will intensify. There should be no misunderstanding. This is not a walk in the park. A lot of interests are challenged, and they will put strong resistance. But what is gratifying the public is the public response. Every reform effort in the anti-corruption area has been welcomed and wholly supported. We look forward to the July and November conference to really provide a full account to our international partners. Prior to that, we will be holding a national conference on our anti-corruption, on the implementation and further refinement of our anti-corruption strategy. Bringing depth and breadth. My first remark is that high councils are proving to be ineffective, inefficient mechanism of decision-making and consensus building. The private sector is there, civil society is there, all parts of the government. This has become an important way, and the interrelationship among councils is increasingly moving forward. Private sector dialogue and partnership is intensifying. I'll just provide you with one example. Since March 21st, our new year, we've had 6 meetings of the Economic High Council. And we have had 5 meetings of the Anti-Poverty or Poverty Eradication Council. This indicates, and we are looking forward to the initiative of Mr. Zaki on a big conference on labor that we've been working for weeks on. The area that we did not promise but have delivered is municipal reform. Significant reform is underway. I congratulate Mr. Nadiri and his colleagues, and also the IDLG, Mr. Beg and his colleagues, for 8 reformist mayors have been recognized, and Mayor of Kandahar, based on the last meeting of the Urban Council, was given a special presidential award, recognition. This is a man who managed to give firm property rights within a year to tens of thousands of residents of Kandahar, to complete a road that was stuck for 60 years, and to digitize all assets and properties in Kandahar within a short order. That type of initiative is moving forward. The mayor of Qalai now was rewarded for being the first mayor to create a center for 400 women entrepreneurs in the heart of his city. These examples stand out, and this is an indication of increasing accountability. Every single mayor is significantly increased domestic revenue and provided credible expenditure. Analysis of governance by the Civil Service Commission, I'd like to particularly acknowledge Mr. Nadiri and his colleagues, the commissioners, for immense work and for creating a very fashionable and very livable headquarters. People in Palace who saw that came to envy, particularly that everything is Afghan-made. I hope that every other institution follows both your taste and your support of local industry. They've completed analysis of 8 provinces. Based on this analysis, we are now going to move significantly to reform local government. And analysis will be shared with our international partners so you can really see the most significant level of government after the cabinet, how it operates, and what needs to be done. I'd like to thank the women of Afghanistan for their particular role. I'd like to single out Judge Rasooli for her remarkable courage and conviction in prosecuting those that needed to be prosecuted. Thank you, Justice Rasooli. But I'd also like to thank the women who went to the United States, the young leaders who went to the United States. They left. I was speaking to General Nicholson's wife on Friday. They left an impression that Afghan women do not occupy their positions of influence and power because they're women, because they are the best and they have the conviction. So Minister Nehan and colleagues, thank you for your immense effort. Deputy Minister Surabi. Women, youth, and the poor have welcomed the merit-based recruitment system. Minister Nadiri, I hope you will show some of the pictures of thousands of men and women standing in stadiums and applying for exams. If anybody tells you that there's a shortage of women applicants, highly educated women applicants, ask him. Over 8,000 in Herat, over 1,000 in Helmand. If 1,000 women in Helmand can apply for jobs, they're available everywhere. And we should drop the myth that Afghan women are no longer available or no longer educated or no longer willing to work. The second generation of procurement reform is underway. I'd like to salute Mr. Yari, our Minister of Public Works, who started the process, and Mr. Hoteki, who's furthering it. Afghanistan is going to be the second country in South Asia to move to electronic procurement, and equally to an investment-based procurement mechanism. Condition-based approaches, from the state building contract, Mr. Ambassador, with you, to compact with the United States, to IMF, is working. Mr. Sopko, we like condition-based. We are one of the few countries on earth that likes condition-based approaches, and it's important that we further this and move forward with them, because that moves the dialogue from asking and encouraging to focusing on specifics, and all our international partners are very significant in this, and I welcome your role. Let me turn to challenges. International competitive bidding is emerging as a major challenge. These rules, and I was at the World Bank for 10 years, were made for conditions of peace, for conditions of genuine competition. Unfortunately, under current conditions, the Afghan private sector and the Afghan industry is being turned into subcontractors of subcontractors. They are neither efficient by cost or by delivery. We've assembled a picture of all our procurement office, and if you'd like to, we'll share them with you. Delays or frequent costs overruns or the trend. Instead of complaining, we have a proposal, which we've started with the Asian Development Bank. Let's shift to performance-based work approach to the infrastructure. Let us indicate what we need to complete, rather than how a process is done, and you monitor the process. The fundamental shift would be that the work would be tailored to the capacity of Afghan contractors, and we would get international engineers and international project monitors and supervisors. The previous approach has not worked. Your citizen asked, where did the billions of dollars that you provided to us went? And one answer is to the contractors. So we need a fundamental shift. Now that we have done our first significant installment of reform, I hope that you would work with us to do the second installment together, and the Afghan private sector is ready and engaged. There are 200 Afghan private firms that are not having sufficient business. But ultimately, everything is being done by them, and costs will be reduced substantially. We've reached agreement on a one UN, and I thank Ambassador Yamamoto for his leadership. The first site website providing information to Afghan public will become available in June. A level playing field, judging the efforts of government and international partners regarding mutual accountability will be very welcome. If after 17 years of presence in Afghanistan, for the first time, the UN, the embodiment of the anti-corruption strategy, global anti-corruption strategy, is creating its first website, judge us also either by the same pace and standard or create a level playing field, please. Civil society and NGOs have yet to act on our public request for generalized accountability for expenditure of around over $800 million in the results. We love the civil society, we want their support, but it has to be a framework of mutual accountability and comparison. There are phenomenal examples of success. The Swedish committee, the Japanese NGO, the Norwegians, etc. There is no shortage. But so we are not saying that the problem is sector-wide, but it needs to become, the successes need to become generalized. With $4 million, Dr. Kimura has achieved remarkable results, 12,500 hectares of irrigated land that now provide employment, livelihood to 650,000, and in addition, reforestation, massive reforestation, and a community willingness and participation. The Swedish committee, in effect, was both the Ministry of Health and Ministry of Education of Afghanistan during our dark. So the phenomenal success, we don't want to put everybody in the same pan, but it requires a more generalized approach so successes can be moved. And the last challenge is the dialogue regarding conditions for shifting from off-budget to on-budget needs intensification, and equally, we need a discussion on technical assistance and its modalities in parallel organizations. Modes of technical assistance, when we lacked strategy and everything was to encourage us and impel us, were satisfactory. But today, you have reformers, and I'd like to bring it to your attention that 49% of the Afghan cabinet is under the age of 40. They're extraordinarily well-educated and grounded in this country. These leaders require different type of interlocutors, different modalities of technical assistance, and we have had a very successful series of examples through online advice rather than on the ground. So we would urge this to be taken. 6 priorities. First is political leadership. I hope that there is no question that the government of national unity is taking anti-corruption seriously. And one illustration, again, is that 49% of the Afghan cabinet is under 40. But it's not just that. The CBR process that was stuck has been accelerated. Now, staffing these capable ministers and leaders of agencies are being provided with the right staff through the right competitive exam. Security sector reform. Inherent law. We did not mention the inherent law as part of our anti-corruption strategy. But can you find a government that is going to elections and is willing to take a fundamental reorganization of 2 of its top security ministries, Ministry of Defense and Ministry of Interior? A profitable early retirement scheme. We lowered the age of retirement to 62. I would like to salute Minister Bahrami and Minister Barmak for their leadership. Thank you, ministers. But it's not just that. Minister Bahrami cut the headquarters staff by 1,000 people. Minister Barmak has just reorganized the ministry And this reorganization, I think, will be the sustainable and enduring reorganization of the ministry. Reform of the Ministry of Interior was critical. I hope that Minister Barmak's leadership and his commitment to a merit-based system of recruitment will be fully implemented. The inherent law is the key to this, but also understand the depth of the problem he's facing. Sometimes, for 3 months, is unable to provide me with a suitable candidate for a provisional chief of police. As many as 3 months. We go through dozens of candidates and we find. So the past is also an obstacle that we need to be able to understand. But the other part, regarding reform of the Ministry of Interior that we had promised, both the border police and the civil police, ANCOP, have been fully moved to the Ministry of Defense. Now unity of command is being established within the Ministry of Defense, and that will subject the process. Procurement of both ministries is under significant review, and of course, more needs to be done, but civilianization, again, in both ministries is underway. Civil service. Mr. Nadir will be speaking to you, but I had, on Saturday, a very pleasant experience. Commercial attachés, men, women, from all provinces, all speakers of all languages, were recruited through an incredibly merit-based process, and the person who had won, who had scored 103 out of 100, was a woman. She scored above 100 because there was a 5-point gender preference, but she topped everything. This is an indication of things to come. And they stood and said, for the first time in the history, they won their posts, not their father's name, their uncle's connections, or their mother's relatives. This is a significant cultural change, but it's not just related to that. 8,000 teachers have been recruited through similar process, and over 500 CBR members. Prosecute the corrupt. ACGC has been sharing results with you. His Excellency, the Chief Justice, has just shared with me that files of 2 cabinet ministers from the past have just been submitted, and the special courts will be convened, and 4 other files are under final review by the Attorney General's office, and as soon as they're submitted to the Supreme Court, according to the Constitution, a component of the court will sit in judgment and render judgment. Follow the money. I would like to single out Deputy Minister Payanda, who's not here, and the Ministry of Finance for doing an immense work in budget. And I'd like to thank our Australian colleagues for a form of technical assistance that has been exceptional. Thank you, Ambassador. If you ask our Australian colleagues, 3 of whom were worked, the Ministry of Finance and the budget was able to do the work of 3 years and 6 months. For the first time, we have a transparent budget, no hidden holes, and the principle of use it or lose it. And yesterday in the High Council, we've again decided that this year's budget will be completely discussed and prioritized by Cabinet, if it takes as many as 6 sessions of the Cabinet, and then there'll be public consultation, 2 areas that are crucial. Priority ministries were in 2 categories: revenue ministries and expenditure ministries. Ministry of Mining and Public Work, a roadmap has been prepared, implementation is underway. We can now credibly say that by November, you will see significant award of contracts in the mining areas. Past contracts have been reviewed. Those that will be canceled, those that need to be negotiated. But new contracts are being awarded, and we've started awarding. In the policy, particularly the marble sector, I'm delighted to inform you that in the session before last of the High Economic Council last week, we saw an investment of $15 million in Kabul for processing of both tiles and slabs, all according to the latest Italian machinery. Mr. Ambassador, you would be pleased, in meeting EU environmental standards. I hope now that it's oriented towards it. And to the top of it, 20% of the employment will be women. Investment in the mining sector is beginning seriously, as it is in the energy sector. But the legacy of the past still needs to be tackled. We are renegotiating and canceling those contracts that were awarded. Now the website is fully available. Transport. The transport law was a license for corruption for 60 years. The law has been completely rewritten, and I'm acknowledging Mr. Alukuzai and the significant role of the private sector with us. Based on the new law, the ministry will shift from executing and actually being an obstacle to the private sector to an open system of licensing, like the Ministry of Communication, where routes between cities, among cities, and within cities will be auctioned. And equally, taxis and public transport. We hope to see the first investment in transport terminals in Kabul, and following that in 4 to 8 other cities. Communication and information technology, open access policy. I'd like to acknowledge Mr. Ayubi and his colleagues. The open access policy on fiber optics is resulted in commitment of $320 million from 4 of our private companies. And they've begun work. These are not memorandums of understanding. This is real work, and the outstanding problems will be discussed. Internet. When the government of national unity was formed, the cost of a megabyte of internet was $96 to the Afghan Telecom. Last week, it got reduced to $13. In January of 2019, it's going to be reduced to $6.50. We've created new contracts. All the sole source contracts that previously imposed this high price are being changed. Dark fiber, yesterday, we decided on lowering the prices. Now it would be a mechanism to make sure that the benefits pass, not just to the companies, but to the ultimate users. Asan Khidmat, you've highlighted, and it's being widened. But the personnel problem of the ministry remains a significant challenge. Still, the majority of the people that Minister Ayubi has inherited, ironically, are graduates of high school. So we have a fundamental challenge as to how to align the staff with reformist ministers. Hajj and Awqaf, slow. As a major revenue ministry, it's not working. We're now working, and this would be in the coming months, to make sure that Hajj becomes literally a logistic operation. We've discussed, we've arrived at it, but for this season's Hajj, we need to continue. It is being every year handled as though it's an emergency. And it will be turned very significantly. The Awqaf part, as the source of investment, is not received significant attention. We are slow here. By contrast, the Arazi office, and if Mr. Paikar is here, I'd like to acknowledge him, is moving with top speed. Within 4 years, the first thing we have done is to create a land bank. All state property is being put in one land bank. We will be able to simplify processes and be able to account property rights are being awarded, and within 4 years, I hope that you would see a revolution in property rights in Afghanistan. In equally private-public partnership. 2 of our most crucial ministries are mixed. Finance and commerce, industry and commerce. Finance has done a great job on budget and on treasury. Customs is still a significant area of corruption. The good news is now there's a complete strategy, and like the Ministry of Education, Minister Nadri and his colleagues will make sure that customs recruitment is totally transparent and organized and non-political. Equally, we've come with a strategy on how to create customs, dry post, and investment zones. The strategy is in place now. It's in the process of finalization, but reform of the customs is critical to doubling our revenue within 2 years. And that's where we need to focus, and we need assistance in all areas. Industry and commerce is equally mixed. Reform is proceeded, but the private sector is not finding a partner that is moving the industry. We have lacked an industrial strategy, and we will focus on it. The hangover of the past, where the merchant culture dominates industry, is still a fundamental challenge, and this needs to be overcome. Expenditure ministries. Agriculture, Minister Durrani has started a major reform on anti-corruption. The issue is not anti-corruption. The issue now is lack of qualifications. Pine nuts, I've mentioned this example to you a dozen times, is one of our most significant revenue earners, but we are not earning anything in export because we don't have a single expert on pine nuts in any part of our government, and nor in our part of our international advisors. That shows the relationship. Education, a complete overhaul is underway. I'm delighted that Ms. Nadima Sahar, one of our brilliant women, both as an entrepreneur and as a policy analyst, agreed to take the leadership of the technical and vocational training part. That office will be separated in due process with the, recruitment in the Ministry of Education is completely gone to the Civil Service Commission, and its procurement equally. We are building 6,000 schools through the Ministry of Rural Development, Minister Karimi, and equally through Minister Nadri. Energy and water is disappointing. Expenditure is not moving. We're not getting the benefits of the big dams that we invested. Labor, I want to thank Minister Zaki for significant reforms, and particularly in terms of payment to the retiree sector reform, and as well as martyrs and disabled. This has been very tough work. It needs to continue. Electronic payment is critical. I'm pleased to say that over 100,000 people now are being paid through the electronic payment system. Public Works is undergoing a full reorganization. Minister Yari is, I think, going to be a challenge to the Ministry of Finance, because in the past it was a ministry that always returned its budget. Now he's spending at a rate that we cannot catch up with. Rural development is equally on course with Citizen Charter. Let me turn to my concluding remarks. First, again, the key political task of 2000 elections. A free, fair, inclusive, and democratic election requires a proper analytic framework to deal with all dimensions of corruption and interference. I hope that during your deliberations, particularly with the Independent Election Commission, you will be able to create such a framework. And all areas need to be identified, and realistic expectations need to be set. This is crucial to the participation. You saw that our people are willing to die for their democratic rights. Let's honor their memories by conducting a free, fair, transparent, and inclusive election. I've never been an addict, but I thought on my concluding remarks, I will repeat the theme of 7 steps. Shining light on a cancers that threaten body politics is a painful exercise. And of course, the pain is general and the shame is general. But moving beyond that, the first step is to, like addiction, is acknowledgement that we have a problem. And that acknowledgement, I hope, has been consolidated and taken place. Diagnostics has been the second step. A clear diagnostic of the problem, and I hope that on that, again, we have consensus. Third, good strategy is the third step, because we've had many bad strategies in this regard. The fourth step is relentless implementation. Prosecution is the fifth step. Those who commit crime must not get away with it. The culture that it's acceptable to run away with state assets and nothing happens or abuse your authority. The sixth step is learning. Because this is not a science, it's an art. It's an art that combines judgment and deliberation. And one needs to understand the absorptive capacity of the society and the capability for delivery. If we don't sequence right, sequencing is crucial to learning and to expansion of the domain. And seventh step is perseverance. Our people command us to persist and overcome. We shall, and we will, with your support, succeed. In conclusion, for the decade of transformation, I would like to propose some very simple, but hopefully feasible goals. The goals that I propose is that by 2024, we should at least have $8 billion in domestic revenue. This requires agreement with our international partners on a framework to get rate of growth to between 6 and 9%. And the third issue is to change our balance of trade from roughly 8 to 1. We import 8 times what we export. And that's a recipe for unsustainability. So it's important. Then the means, if we set the goals, the process of reform and the choices that we make become clear. I've seen an excellent document from the World Bank called Pakistan at 100. And it paves a picture that if they continue with business as usual, it would be extraordinary, difficult consequences for the people. But if they make the courageous decisions, they could go forward. We need an equally clear framework for Afghanistan by 2047. It's going to be our 300th anniversary of a state, the foundation of the state, and it be a proper marker by then to get out of the transformation decade to exercise in vision and credibility that would be suitable to a people who've sacrificed so much, who are so dedicated to the goal of partnership, decency, and humanity. Once again, I would like to thank you for this opportunity, and I wish you great deliberations.